Right. Here we go again, Oliver. Both of us in a new location this time.
Yeah, I'm in London town today. Had a day out of my home office, which has been nice, thinking and planning into Q4 as I think everybody must be at the moment.
Definitely starting those conversations or midway through those conversations for many. So exciting times, and that's always a fun opportunity to reflect, keep it high level. Sometimes as ops people, I think what's the saying? We miss the forest for the trees. We're very in the weeds. We're problem solver, but being able to take that step back, reflect, plan for the upcoming season is important. And I think on the topic of planning, we have a very exciting guest. We're joined by Joe at Complex. So maybe Joe, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hey guys, good morning. It's great to be here and really appreciate you having me on. Feels like a full circle moment. Started working with Fulfil in 2021, and it's been cool to watch, like as Fulfil has grown and features have evolved, the entire platform has matured. I feel like my personal development has also coincided with that in a lot of ways. Having the tool at my disposal and kind of having an open canvas to say, all right, how am I going to solve problems with this tool that I have available has been instrumental for me. And Ollie, I know we met over the past couple of years as well, and it's been great working with you and learning from you in the process. You've been an excellent thought partner as well. So yeah, I'm Joe Vitello. I'm currently the director of integrated business systems at Complex. I started off at Network in 2021, which is now Complex, and I was working as an e-commerce assistant. I moved into logistics after that. And yeah, like I mentioned before, from the jump, we basically got Fulfill a couple months after I joined the company. And that's been a lever that I've been able to use to approach problem solving for e-commerce, logistics, really the end-to-end product critical path. And so here I am today in integrated business systems. It's a new department that we formed to really close the loop on the work that I started 4 years ago and create a connective tissue between different ops product users, whether that's product development, accounting, merchandising, e-commerce, logistics, and fulfillment. I think as operators, we often see that these users work in silos and the tools that they're working on aren't always connected. And to me, it always just seemed like a no-brainer to build a system that allows them to do the work that they do in a specialized way, in a specialized environment, and have that all assimilate into a core system where everybody has visibility and gets the full picture. Um, so yeah, that's a little bit about myself. And like I said before, really excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, that's awesome. And both Kabir and I obviously know Complex and we understand the business, but to people who don't know Complex, could you maybe just speak to some of the things that really make your operational strategy different? Like, what are the things that you face that most businesses doing what you do just don't even have to think about?
Yeah, that's a good question. A little bit of context on the company in general, I guess, for those that are less familiar. Complex was originally created in 2002 by Mark Echo, and it's a cultural entertainment business. It started off as a magazine, working in pop culture categories like streetwear, style music, footwear, and sports. Um, Network, the company that I began working for that merged with Complex, we were doing live video shopping, like QVC for millennials, I think was the tagline at the time in the startup world. And we were building an experiential platform, and we merged those two worlds together and brought the media side of Complex in with the commerce side of Network, uh, to seamlessly integrate a lot of the modern shopping experience and build a cutting edge system to power it. Um, so I guess the real key to answering your question is Complex is tied to cultural moments and cultural personalities and cultural brands. And with that comes a need for a lot of agility, to put it lightly. Um, Things change in the cultural calendar all the time, and the personalities that we are fortunate to work with also are very creative,
Mm.
which means ideas are constantly being generated and you have to adapt. And as an operator, our gold standard, and this is something I'm sure you all relate to as systems guys yourselves, is building a codified homogeneous system that can accept um, variable inputs, but has the same output regardless. And so, without sounding too punny, it's just a very complex machine that needs to be built to
Mm.
handle those variable inputs.
Most companies have got one creative director, two if they're really unlucky, and you've got rotating creative directors. Every time you're working on one of those new partnerships, you've got someone else in the mix that has a say, all the way down to the finer details on product, right?
Yeah, in a lot of ways, we have an internal team, of course, but it really is a marriage, and yeah, it's all about making it work at the end of the day.
Yeah, it was the way you prompted it. It was a very nice way of saying that. Obviously, you have to be able to be agile due to some of the changing constraints, and the output you want is obviously clean operations. You've got people who are coming for your drops that they want orders or they want their items. One, you have to deliver it to them, and you don't want to oversell. Overselling in these scenarios is tough.
Mm.
You got to do fast product development life cycle. So there's a lot of ops complexity in unpacking what you just said. But maybe let's start with the product development side. Obviously, for standard apparel, you've got seasonal. You might be 4, you might be 6, but it is a pretty set seasons, and you can know and have a standard product development lifecycle. For you all, how many drops are you doing, and what does that look like?
I think I don't know off the top of my head how many drops we're doing, but let me just take a step back and describe like how the calendar operates at a macro level. And I think I could probably do some math in my head in the process, but um, ours is a hybrid model, and we definitely use the traditional apparel fashion calendar at the macro level of it, year, season. But our seasons are filled with drops. And the main driver on those drops is, again, going back to my description of Complex, the cultural calendar. And product development cycles are typically like, 6 to 12 months, maybe more. They're planning for the next year of the season that we're in. Um, for us, we might launch a quick strike product in as little as 4 weeks. So for us,
Really?
our planning
So four
starts at,
weeks.
oh yeah,
Sorry to interrupt, but like 4 weeks from idea to development to fulfillment, or what do you mean by 4 weeks there? What's involved?
yeah, 4 weeks from concept to launch.
Wow. Yeah, talk us
Keep in
through
Yeah.
mi-
that.
keep in mind, I don't know how we're defining the product development cycle, but it might not
Mm.
include the production because we do engage made to order.
Yeah. So you might be taking like that could be a blank that you where you do a strike, you're doing a print on something and you just need to get the print approved and you do a strike off and then the print can go straight through. And that could be something that you do really fast versus, a leather jacket that's completely new and bespoke to complex and no one's ever seen before in the market.
Yeah, I mean, we all have social media and we know how these viral concepts originate rapid fire. And there's times where we're bullish on one of those cultural moments and we got to get something out.
Yeah.
We're doing made to order in some of those cases. We're really not ever engaging print on demand because we are obsessive over the quality control of our products.
Yeah.
But that being said, um, yeah, we're even if we're on a 4 week cycle and it's MTO, it's going to get manufactured in-house somewhere.
Yeah. So talk to me about the teams involved in a tighter timeline and turnaround like that. Like obviously there's implications for almost every team at the company as it relates to marketing, e-commerce, supply chain, ops fulfillment. Like everyone's got to be
Mm.
tightly executing, even if you're not producing it in those 4 weeks. You still have to have everyone in line. What does that collaboration look like?
It looks the same basically as our longer lead time calendars do. And when I was starting to lay out what our calendar looks like, I was going to note we basically have standardized models for different lead times. Same teams are involved, whether that's marketing, product development, the actual business leads that are bringing these deals to the table and sourcing the opportunity. And really, it's just a matter of condensing the timelines. And there are certain steps or milestones in those timelines that can't be accommodated on a shorter term. A big factor there is approvals, right? Like we're working with external partners, and you just have to set expectations. We can do this, but we're not going to have as much creative flexibility if we want to hit that timeline. But the core calendar is the same. The core milestones are the same. It's all about just finding ways to hack it and make it quicker, whether that's producing domestically, um, doing full in-house production versus sourcing multiple elements. There's different ways to go about it, really.
And how many people have you got across those functions, roughly coordinating all of those bits together that your business systems are then connecting together?
Yeah. We are an agile team, lean team is what I meant to say. I think on the ops side and product development side, we're probably the most lean. But when you include marketing, all the go-to-market functions, broader marketplace leadership and sales, it's probably 50 people, 40 to 50 people, I would say.
Yeah, it's a lot to coordinate across so many different product life cycles running concurrently, because each one could be a drop with a slightly different virtual team against it to pull it all together. And how much have you managed to connect? Like one of the challenges I frequently see there is like what's going on in your supply chain in terms of, you've got what's in Fulfil in your ERP, like we know what product's coming there. There's the team that feed into that product development and production who want to know, have my purchase orders been raised? And then likewise on the other side of it, marketing and e-com are like, is the product coming? Is it going to launch on time? How have you thought about bringing all of that together across your different tools?
Yeah, I know you and I have spent a lot of time talking about this and bouncing ideas back off one another. I think the core concept there is simply put, connected supply chain. We've got input values around shipment routing, supplier shipment routing in Fulfil lingo. And we want to relay that to our customers. How do we get that information first and foremost in the supply chain master of truth, Fulfil? And then how do we get it to our customers? Um, we've made a lot of headway on solving this problem. It is about integration at the end of the day. And I think taking a step back and before we get to how do we get that information out of our supply chain into the storefront, you've got to have a solve for actually harvesting that information in a seamless and accurate fashion. Our supply chain process that I worked to develop when I was leading logistics was all about, and this is my approach to, I guess, process and systems in general, empowering the people with the highest fidelity information to be the ones to codify that information in the system. And so for us, it's not we don't have an ops function that's creating our purchase orders. We made it more seamless for the people that are actually transacting with suppliers to create purchase orders themselves. And that looked like an API solution at the time. And in Fulfil, the purchase orders have a lot of preliminary supply chain information. We have requested ship dates and planned receive. I think planned receiving dates is actually on the supplier shipment, but
Yep.
planned delivery date, I forget what the field is called. And so that's like the first checkpoint, right? If you can get that information built in, now you have a clear
Yep.
expectation set, and it's set by the people that are closest to that part of the process. Then we have a logistics handoff where when routing begins, the process really becomes led by our logistics team. Our routing guide speaks to this. Suppliers understand the expectation around compliance that when you're preparing to ship, you must be in contact with the logistics team to provide that ASN. The logistics team then enriches the preliminary supply chain data, right? Like what was the expected ship date? And now what
Yep.
is our planned receiving date on the supplier shipment? So just to say, you want to get clean and valid inputs first and foremost. Getting it out to the customer from there is just a matter of integrating that supply chain data with the product data that you have living on the storefront.
I love that. I think that what you described is it's very powerful. It seems like a no-brainer, but it's something that we see not done very often, which is the person closest to the process is the one getting the data into the system. The system's only as good and as powerful as the accuracy of the data that's in there. And oftentimes we see that, okay, it's IT's responsibility or someone else's responsibility to manage the system, and the buyers are not even looking at it. They're just dealing with their suppliers. And then there's so many disconnects and places where it can break. But to hear you've made it so that the person who owns that function is responsible for the data and it gets into the relevant source of truth so that it can get passed to the next team with minimal context and necessary handoff because the data is all there. It's really powerful when done right. Like it seems like a small thing, but it isn't.
Totally. And like you said, it seems like a no-brainer. It's hard to get there because you're managing personalities. People are systems averse, and I think you were getting at this point. Like a lot of people just there's an expectation that the operators are the ones to work in these systems. It doesn't have to be that way though. And I've learned the hard way that when you go that route, you're not mitigating risk and you're not reducing ambiguity. Someone like me who's been in that type of function before, that's kind of middlemanning data, doesn't matter how vigilant you are or how accurate the data is. Now you have to track every change that happens and every communication that might provide an input to that change. And if those communications are happening on email, forget it. You're going to make mistakes. So it's all about creating a frictionless environment where people can do their work and then connecting those things.
Yeah, it's key. Like we see a similar thing with PLM use cases where designers don't want to use the PLM because it's really clunky, and then they never get fully onboarded. And then you speak to the PD product development team; they're doing all the admin for everybody else, and they're hiring more and more admin teams. So I never really thought about it from an ERP perspective, but I assume what you're articulating is the same thing, where you've got a buying team who raise the purchase orders, and they might think the handoff to supply chain is we'll just send you the CSV, right, with what we need to buy. And you guys, you're the ERP guys, you're going to handle all of that. And then they run their production tracker completely separate from ERP, and they're emailing suppliers and they're getting updated information. And then before you know it, if you go into Fulfil, none of the dates are accurate anymore. None of the information's right. It was like right at the moment, but no one's actually using it like day to day. So it's kind of like an event that happens rather than that next step of like getting people onboarded and trained up. And I assume that wasn't something that was immediate. Yeah, you said that Fulfil had gone in just before you joined. What have been the kind of user groups that you've gone after in like almost your second and third wave of onboarding people to Fulfil? Have there been any other teams that you've gone, God, I wish everyone should get them on board because that's made that work much better?
Yeah, great question. There's a couple things I want to pull out of that. One, I don't think that everyone should be working in the ERP directly. Although, believe me, for as much as I love Fulfill and as much as I see the utility, there's been plenty of times where I have been like, everyone should be working in the ERP. But you captured the pain point perfectly. And I think what I was getting at is even if they're not working in Fulfill per se, there's got to be a connected tool so that that information is syncing over. But to answer your question, other user groups that we've onboarded in additional waves, let me think about that a little bit. Of course, accounting was in there with us out of the gates, logistics, fulfillment, e-commerce wasn't, well, I guess technically at the time, e-commerce and logistics was kind of the same user group for us. But e-commerce kind of had a V2 revisit when our product publishing flow became directly levered through Fulfil listing creation.
Yeah.
So that was an adoption project, merchandising, product development, whether wholesale or um, production. And we've also onboarded other groups just for visibility on things like inventory, order status. Customer service has been in the mix all along.
So
Yeah.
have you like what's the benefit you've seen in terms of, even if they're not in the system directly, their data's flowing in, now you have this source of truth. What are some of the positives, the like to the either the customer experience, the data visibility? Are there things you're able to accomplish now that maybe wouldn't be as possible without that clean source of truth?
I think it just comes down to the core architecture and concepts in Fulfill and the way that I prefer to leverage those things over, say, what other ERPs might offer and how they might be built. Things like the ability to split shipments, customer shipments or supplier shipments. And there's a ton of other features and tricks that we've learned over the years working in Fulfill that it's just a matter of getting the data in there.
From what I've seen, like the thing that really struck me about um, Complex as a whole is what's got you to where you are has been very operator driven. So you, on that initial growth phase you've just been through the last 2 years, you opted for tools like Fulfill and like Airtable, where you can get into them and you can get hands on and you can do innovation yourselves, and you're the masters of your own destiny to a big degree. And then where I've seen you maturing in like the last 6 months is like around the discussions that we were having of, you know, you've reached a point where you're bringing in like more senior leadership now, you know, like your role evolving into the one that it's evolved into. And then at that point, you can start to make those more enterprise platform choices where you're getting more specialist tools. And as you're going out to market on them, you're able to go and pick the premium solution in the market in the different areas, but also know that you've got the tech team, you know, you've got an amazing product director, you know, from that's done all this kind of thing before, where you've got the firepower now as a company to go and do these much more advanced technology projects that are going to take many, many months. And when you're going through like pretty much a blitz scale phase that you've just lived through the last couple of years, you know, you described putting two companies together, figuring all of that out, an ERP going in just before, and then doing multiple drops a month or a week and a team growing to like 50 odd people across all of that. You know, it's pretty crazy. From, if you think of a normal brand, they might be doing like, you know, 12 drops a year and they're like, oh my God, we made it. We did one a month. That was amazing.
Yeah, it was chaotic. And I guess the way I'd crystallize that is for a long time, I was working both in the machine as the operator and on the machine because I have been this system administrator. And it was a lot. And we've made incremental improvements over the past 4 years that have not only given me bandwidth and peace of mind to say, all right, this is in a place where I don't have to have my thumb on this all the time.
Mm.
But then, like you mentioned, we've had great leadership um, the whole time, and especially over the past year and a half, we've had some awesome leaders enter the room that are also great mentors and have been very valuable to me on a personal level with, all right, how do we like harness this? So yeah, it's like you said, getting the tools, but then also having the right people in place, which
Mm.
is the more challenging part in my opinion.
Yeah, a big part of the battle for many brands is how in that um, how in that business model do you find space for these tech people to come in when they're often like to really have tech leadership come in, they're coming in the C-suite, and the business likely hasn't had anyone in that role before. It's a hat that's been worn by many people. It's yeah, a lot of companies never really get there, and it's certainly a difficult one to pick off.
Yeah. And I think the other thing too is now that I have this kind of product related function, I'm just grateful for the experience that I've had as an operator because the use cases and the empathy that I have for these end users is real, you know? So I'm happy with the way that this all evolved and shook out because now we can create something that's really special and it works.
Yeah, I think if you have someone who's designing the systems who hasn't done the work, you end up with something that isn't as grounded in reality. So it is always the best case scenario to have, like, if I take it to our day to day when I'm working on the implementation side, I want to work with the
Mm.
operations people who are doing the work and get the information from them directly. And then I can design the system around that, not a layer in between where there's a technical design or something that maybe isn't as grounded in that reality. So I think that you're able to be a lot more powerful in your role due to that.
Yeah, there's just a lot of nuance. Like it's complex. There's a lot of nuance, and I'm not sure how many sessions or how many hours it would take. And granted, you can always standardize and introduce a new model, but I think we just found a happy balance where it's like you guys have your way of working. You don't need to throw that out. We're just gonna refine it a little bit.
Mm. Just to take it back to the launch piece, um, say I've worked with a few brands where they might be doing, yeah, maybe a drop every 3 months or a drop, 2 drops a quarter. And that in itself is a huge undertaking. What do you think are like the biggest bottlenecks that you see as you crank up like the number of drops and the volume in product development? What are the departments that feel the pinch? And have you got any like tactical solutions that people could think about to solve some of those issues? Like to kind of start you off as an example, fit sessions is one that always crucifies teams. If they're doing like making a new dress and they need the founder has to be in the room when every fit's done and she needs to say how the dress is hanging and all that's the bottleneck. How many fit sessions can you do a month? How many samples can you get to the fit session? If you can't get the products to the fit session, you can't fit it. That's it, you're toast. Is there any other things that you've seen that are more complex related that people could pick up from?
That's a good question, and I'm trying to think of a specific. But I think what you're speaking to in specific detail might be encapsulated in general by what is coming to mind for me, which is just the approvals process, which I alluded to earlier, working with um, external creatives and people that have a stake in what this end product is going to look like. And I think tactically there is an approach to take, and it's really a sales pitch on the value of the structured approach, right? Like if we want faster, uh, shorter product lead times, faster go to market, more revision rounds, well, we've got to improve this. And
Mm.
you can sell the value through this kind of gamified unlock. I'm not saying that works all the time, but I think it's a good place to start.
Yeah. It's the feedback loops is the key. That's where you lose all the time. If you do 3 feedback loops instead of 2, that's the killer. Having to go back around the houses and double check and triple check and make sure everything's been done.
And that's almost one of the benefits of being in the drop model is you define there's a inherent sense of urgency. And I think having that timeline of this has to get done by now, like things will take the time you give it and fill the time you give it. And I think that's also a good thing in that if you have a set defined timeline, it's launching now, you'll know, okay, I got to get this done without the next approval. You also know with that timing, there's a little bit of planning you can do ahead of time. Like, you're going to get a huge influx of orders on this day at this time. So, like, what do you do to actually prepare? And because it is nice, it's not like it's a random influx. You know exactly when it's going to happen. You know how to service those customers. For brands who are not as used to this and are approaching their first few drops, what are some of the lessons you learned, maybe the hard way, that they can avoid by planning ahead effectively?
Are you asking specifically about the fulfillment? I know you were talking about orders dropping.
Fulfillment, ops, supply, across the board. You have a drop upcoming. You might not be as familiar with this drop model. You're expecting an influx of customers on your website, orders coming in. How does your team prep, or any team prep for that to do this right?
Yeah, I mean, I was speaking to our core development process, but really every team involved has a list of milestones, and that even comes down to tech stability. Let's look at website and out potential for outages, et cetera. On the 3PL side, volume forecasting. So we're taking our sales, and we have a great relationship with our 3PLs. And when we are expecting a spike in volume, we are, of course, communicating that to them. And then there are configuration elements that we need to prepare for as well. Um, if it's on the if we have a mixed bag of pre-order and things that are also going to be either in the warehouse by the time sales happen or will be landing soon after, we need to make sure that our shipments are configured to split accordingly, not split accordingly, whatever we've decided on as the model for that drop. But um, yeah, there's preparation involved from every team. Creative knows that they're waiting on certain assets, and they've got a pipeline for processing them and getting them form fit to actually be customer facing.
That's the term you use. You just reminded me, pipeline is the term you use. I just remember you talking about pipeline a lot and just thinking about, I think what's really different with Complex is the product pipeline is so connected to the revenue pipeline. Like, and actually a lot of what you do begins with that sales job of convincing a partner that they should go and create their cultural moment with you, and then that you're working it through this like unique complex system of creating products and bringing their vision to life, all the way through to then it becomes your supply chain pipeline to then move things out the other side. I think there's something in the terminology there where you're thinking and speaking about everything, because it just describes everything being connected. Like if there's a blockage in design, supply chain can never get at it. And yeah, the big one that you can almost never move, that everybody wishes they could, is the lead time from purchase order to delivery. And it's like, if you don't get that in, you're just never going to get at it at the end of the day. And that's so hard for teams to understand, I think.
Yeah, and I know it ultimately affects customers, right? And you've got to have that empathy. We are comfortable with engaging a pre-order or future delivery type of SLA. It's just about being honest at the end of the day. So if you can do that, um, I'm comfortable with longer purchase order lead times. Like I said before, we have short purchase order lead times as well. It's just about being honest and getting that information to them.
Exactly. To your point,
Yeah,
the
exactly.
customer is also fine with it as long as the expectations are set appropriately. It's when you tell them it's shipping immediately or don't say anything, and then they wait, you inherently will get the customer service request, where's my order? But you're not going to get any of that if you just say, hey, it's coming in a month, take it or leave it. And most of the time they take it.
Yeah. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's a pipeline, and I definitely gravitate towards creating these operational frameworks or catchphrases that can be kind of glommed onto. I'm the one to promote them initially, but then it's like, oh, it's a pipeline, and it makes sense conceptually, and it resonates in a way that captures that operational element. And I think it's important to build that ops culture within the teams that aren't necessarily ops teams. And you get better alignment and more value out of the entire process when everyone understands there's this ops ethos to the way that we actually accomplish what we're looking to accomplish.
Yeah.
It's the glue.
Yeah, exactly. And it goes without saying, I think, to the question we were answering around how do you prep for a drop model, it's your default at Complex. So, yeah, when you're looking at any vendor, you're thinking about how does it work with our model. And particularly if you're working with 3PL partners, you'll be thinking and talking about those things right from the start. And I assume like selecting partners. based on their ability to like, it's going to be quiet for a little while and then it's going to be really busy. And like, there are partners now who are kind of ready for that. There's plenty of brands that are operating in that way, but definitely not the standard still.
Yeah, and it's funny because my background prior to joining Network was in warehousing um, for music and entertainment brands and tier zero sneaker distributors. So kind of the high volume drops model was really all I knew. And I was also very hands on. I was like a task rabbit in there getting stuff done. Um, music pumping, but that has shaped the way that I'm able to I got you, Ollie. Um, I think that shaped the way that I'm able to approach these 3PLs that we've vetted over the years and worked with over the years, and not only set expectations with them, but also provide some tactical feedback on the way that, say, I shipped out 12,000 footwear orders in a single day previously, because there's different things you can do, right? It's just about aligning expectations and then expressing flexibility around the operating model.
Yeah. And you've gotten it like with one thing I've seen with Fulfil is you've got the capability around controlling the influx of their orders, like being able to put things on hold, decide when you do split shipments downstream rather than deciding up in Shopify. So, and then also ultimately owning the integration into the 3PL in a way that you're in control of. Like you're never going to have a problem with high volumes. That's like the classic thing that you've seen integrations fall down on. Yeah, and it breaks the connection to the 3PL and then no orders get through and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of the foundation for all of those things.
Like I was speaking to before, um, I think Fulfill's core concept between sales and inventory, movement of goods and financial capture is so elegant. And I haven't looked at other ERPs, so I don't know what other players are offering that might be similarly, but I just love the way that Fulfill has architected that solution. And I love having the ability to delineate this is a physical shipment and this is just a sales order, a control document that reflects, the transaction. But then the utility that you're speaking to, it just can't be understated. I remember when we first started, we had uh, two virtual warehouse locations at one 3PL. Now we have and two or three sales channels connected. Now we have 25 sales channels and 15 or 20 warehouses in Fulfill. And it all works. And a big part of that is just based on the core conceptual framework that Fulfill offers.
Yeah, I mean, the contrast of where you'd be with a generic ERP would be you plus probably a team of two with people having to get like down in the code, and then definitely like an integration platform that's kind of sitting between it all as another thing that you're having to go between as you've been adding in all these different marketplaces or warehouses or whatever. And I just think that with the speed that you guys have gone at, back to your point on agility, like a lot of that agility is around you as an operator being empowered to go in and make those changes yourself rather than, needing to go and write a bunch of scripting to make something happen. Because, if you do, I always say like, I'm also from a lot of time in warehouse management and not quite pumping music though, just selling it to the people pumping music. And we always used to say like, don't, if we ever build something that's so complicated that we struggle to understand it and we struggle to sell it, think what kind of burden you're putting on the person running the warehouse operation. They've then got to explain it to all of their team. So it's just got to be simple as, and sometimes like the simple way is better than the smartest way to do things. Like that's just the reality that you get to with some of this operational stuff, right? Like Kabir, I'm sure you've made loads of choices like that around, oh, the clever way to do it's this. Yeah, but what's the way what's the path people are just going to choose to walk every time, 9 times out of 10, rather than doing that clever thing?
100%. And it's not just on the system design architecture, which I mean, Joe, you so succinctly nailed it in that you have those different kind of records and utilizing that effectively, but it is in the fact that simplicity is key and agility is key in this game. E-commerce, and especially in the model you're describing, but across the board, business models are changing constantly. The inputs, the culture, the requirements. I mean, come on, supply chain's been crazy this year, and you have to be able to be agile. You don't want your system stopping you from keeping your business afloat and thriving and growing and adding 20 new channels or 5 new warehouses or whatever that might be. And so understanding that core foundation and then being able to do that is really what we aim to do. So I can appreciate that you all are taking advantage of that.
Yeah, hats off to you. It comes out of the box, really. Like most of what I'm speaking to right now isn't even the custom configuration. It's just the core
Yeah.
functionality in Fulfill. So hats off to you.
Appreciate how your team is utilizing it and just thinking about these processes. While I would love to take all credit and can appreciate it, it's the fact that your team is like thinking about things in this way and choosing the simplest approach rather than the most complicated. There are so many ways to overcomplicate pre-orders, but you all approach it the right way. Okay, I'll handle it with setting the right expectation with the customer, and the way you approach just your general business systems integrations and getting that clean source of truth. Like, there are many ways where things can still go wrong, and the fact that you approach the architecture and the solution with the simplicity in mind has enabled you all to take advantage of all the tools available to you and really scale and not introduce systems complexity as your business complexity got introduced.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree.
I know we're coming up close on time. We always like to do these quick sessions of quick answers, whatever comes top of mind. So maybe you can't give specific details on certain drops, but we'll start with the positive. When these things work, it looks like a elegant song and dance, right? It's singing. So maybe what is one drop that you are particularly proud of, where it went seamlessly, was a hard one to execute, but got it done?
These kind of questions always get me because we do so many drops. It's hard to it's honestly hard to remember them all. And there's like a similar question, like, have we ever missed a launch due to lack of go live readiness in the back office systems realm? I thought hard about this, and the answer was no. We haven't missed one. We've come very close for sure. Um, Late nights, early mornings, week long of that whole sort of thing. And then you're scrambling like finals week to get this essay submitted or get ready for the test. And you're thinking, oh gosh, we're not going to make it. And we've never actually failed on that side.
It's impressive to hear, given the volume of drops you do, that you feel confident that your team has been able to execute. So that's great. What's one, I guess, a tactical lesson learned for someone who has never done a drop and is just about to schedule their first one for, let's say, next month? They've got a month to plan. If you could tell them 1 or 2 things to do, what would those be?
Definitely on the shipment side. I know we spoke to this heavily, but uh, be prepared with your 3PL and be prepared with your customers. Set clear expectations on both sides and ensure that that product goes out the door when it lands at the 3PL if it's not there already, and ensure your customers getting updated along the way.
It's all good points. Pack benches is the one that I think always catches people out on drops. That always ends up being the bottleneck in the warehouse. You plan everything and then they don't have enough pack benches and they just end up with it all kind of queued up behind. You just get loads of pickers and they're picking everything really fast and they're like, oh, I've only got 3 printers.
I found that if you open up Adobe Illustrator and draw out the tables and draw little silhouettes of the people and draw all the printers and you show them, this is how it needs to flow. This is how many elements we need. That tends to work. I know it sounds funny, but you got to diagram it.
I mean, now I need to see one of them. I'll follow up after this to get one of those designs.
Let me think about some other tactical lessons, though. I think I want to provide value. Um, Inventory, there's so many things that could go wrong on the inventory side. If you are using Fulfil, I'm sure you're familiar with the different inventory availability sources. There's a plethora of unique ways to leverage those to send accurate inventory levels to the channel. But the converse of that, if you have that automation turned off or a setting is configured differently, things can go wrong. Preventing oversell, I guess, as a catch-all for um,
Mm.
tactical knowledge for going into a drop. Prevent oversell at all costs. It's not fun to deal with.
Worst, if you've never had an oversell, you don't know what it means. Not like a big oversell like you're talking about from a drop. Half an hour of mistake, like the round trip between the ERP and Shopify or something. You only need half an hour of that and you could be thousands of orders out, and then you got to email everybody.
Yeah. No, great tactical insight. And honestly, everything we've talked about, Joe, really appreciate it. This was an incredible conversation. I think everyone listening can, as always, take away something that I think will benefit their business, even if they're not in the drop model and have no intention of being in it. I think a lot of the workflows and use cases you described apply to anyone in e-commerce. So really appreciate your time. It was an awesome conversation.
Yeah, thanks again for having me. Felt special to be here with you guys today.
Yeah, man, appreciate you, Joe. Thanks so much. That was great. I think you said you wanted to bring value. You've added a ton of value there.